on YouTube, on Facebook. Welcome all of you who have joined us here on Zoom today. Thank you for joining us on this session. This is session 5B. I was going to say our 6th session, but this is session 5B as we're covering the second part of the 5th session of our series. So next session will be session 6 versus session 7, because today's session is session 5B. We'll be doing this as we go over time in our different presentations where we may need more time than others, and we will use them over 2 weeks. That being said, we want to start first with our opening prayer, a prayer revealed to the Baha'is of the southern states by Abdul Baha.
And also, dear friends, please keep Haiti in your mind, as well as Afghanistan in your mind as we recite this prayer, because they are undergoing great trials and tribulations. Thank you. Dear John, do you have a reader for the prayer?
I'm going to read it.
Please, thank you.
O my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the host of thy glorious kingdom and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest.
Thank you very much. First of all, welcome back. Okay, dear friends. So we were covering paragraphs 12 through 15. And let me share my screen so everyone can see where we were. Make sure this is the right. Yes, good. Okay, this is the right presentation. Okay. And here we go. Okay. Excellent, dear friends. So as you recall, in paragraphs 10 and 11, the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, was outlining all these problems, these convulsions that were around the world, one after another. And then in paragraphs 12 through 15, now the beloved guardian is outlaying that this community, namely the North American Baha'i community, is the chief citadel. But this community is also beset with problems, beset with trials, beset with difficulties and hurdles that it needs to overcome. And so this is a paragraph that I believe we read last time, but it's such a powerful extract from the beloved guardian. Want to reread this one again. So the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, he refers to other significant foreign policies of the United States and its engagement in world affairs. And as we recall, last time we talked about the formation of the League of Nations and then the United Nations and how all of that came about. So then the beloved guardian, he is stating that the journey of the American nation, however long and tortuous this may be, must lead through a series of victories and reverses. So this is from the words of the beloved guardian, must lead through a series of victories and reverses to the political unification of the Eastern and Western hemispheres, to the emergence of a world government and the establishment of the lesser peace, as foretold by Baha'u'llah and foreshadowed by the prophet Isaiah. It must in the end culminate in the unfurling of the banner of the most great peace in the golden age of the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. And as you recall, as we were studying these paragraphs 12 through 15 in part 5a, we covered this Baha'i world commonwealth, and these were extracts from Unfoldment of World Civilization, all the different elements that the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, is outlining that are elements for this golden age of the cause of Baha'u'llah. So we went through one after another. And in this section, because His Holiness, the beloved guardian, he mentions categorically that these are the elements for the ultimate Baha'i world commonwealth and what every Baha'i should be striving towards to bring into being. So, very importantly, dear friends, the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, is saying that this American nation is going to go through greater and greater tribulations. And these tribulations, these sufferings, are inevitable. And here again, this is from Citadel of Faith. It says, many and diverse are the setbacks and reverses which this nation extolled, this means praised so highly by Abdul Baha, and occupying at present so unique a position among its fellow nations, must alas suffer. So this nation, praised by His Holiness Abdul Baha, is going to go through setbacks and reverses. But alas, it must suffer. The road leading to its destiny is long, thorny, and tortuous. And if you recall, in our last session, we talked about this, long and thorny and tortuous. This term, long and thorny road, comes in Advent to Divine Justice. And this is in relation to the long and thorny road that is beset in tackling the problem of racism. So a long and thorny road. And so here the beloved guardian in Citadel of Faith mentions the road leading to its destiny, namely its spiritual destiny. The country's United States spiritual destiny is long, thorny, and tortuous. The impact of various forces upon the structure and polity of that nation will be tremendous. Tribulations on a scale unprecedented in its history and calculated to purge its institutions, purify the hearts of its people, and to fuse its constituent elements and to weld it into one entity with its sister nations in both hemispheres are inevitable. This is such powerful and beautiful language. So the beloved guardian here is assuring us, absolutely categorically assuring us of tribulations are inevitable and on a scale unprecedented will meet the American nation. But what is the purpose? It is to purge its institutions, purge, cleanse, take out the rot of the nation, purify the hearts of its people, and fuse its constituent elements. Imagine that, fusing hearts together. Fusing, I mean, it's we see in our country such, it's not the most fractioned America we've ever seen, because at times our country was completely divided, even on skin color. I mean, there was, at one point in time, it was white water fountains and colored water fountains. At one time, it was enslaved peoples and non-enslaved peoples. Another time, it was indigenous peoples, massacred, and non-indigenous people enjoying the fruits that they have taken in colonization. So it's not the most divided time in our country's history, but yes, this country is still starkly divided. This is a time that these elements need to be fused. And these elements are the hearts, where we love, genuinely love each other as one family. The sufferings of one is the sufferings of all. The sufferings of my neighbor is the suffering of myself. We feel that, and we work to bring about not only the elimination of all racial prejudices, but working towards bringing about a fruitful society. So let us move on, dear friends. So the beloved guardian in paragraph 14 and also in paragraph 15, he mentions this golden age, what as Baha'is we're working towards bringing about. And so I'm going to now just give you a snapshot of what are the three ages of the Baha'i dispensation, okay? So the entire history of the revelation of His Holiness Baha'u'llah can be divided into three ages or stages known as the heroic, the formative, and the golden ages. And each age on its own consists of a number of epochs or periods, okay? So there are three ages: the heroic, formative, and golden, okay? So here's a very simple graphic, okay? This very simple graphic that you can see. Now, you can see the cycles on this graphic. This is the Adamic cycle, all the way up to the point of the Baha'i dispensation, okay? The Adamic cycle starts with Adam, and it had the manifestations of God, these divine lights that come every so 1,000 years during their dispensation, from his Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Zoroaster, Buddha, His Holiness Jesus Christ, Muhammad. And so this is the period of Adamic cycle. It's a prophetic cycle, okay? And this is the period of the Adamic cycle. Then comes the Baha'i dispensation. The Baha'i dispensation starts with the Blessed Bab. And this Baha'i dispensation is at least 1,000 years, okay? But the Baha'i cycle itself, which we were talking about the cycle, like Adamic cycle was about 6,000, but the Baha'i cycle is the cycle of fulfillment, which is very important because all of these manifestations, all of them have written, not only written or set, because some writings are not available. Jesus Christ is in the Bible, as well as Moses' writings, as well as Muhammad has the Quran, as well as there's Hadith. But prior to that, there was whether it's sayings or verses, talking about a prophecy of one who will come, to the fulfillment, prophecies of one who will be the fulfillment. And these individuals are the Bab and Baha'u'llah, the fulfillment of all the prophecies gone before. And so His Holiness Baha'u'llah is that fulfillment. And his dispensation is the Baha'i cycle, and it will last for 500,000 years. And so this period, other dispensations will fall under that umbrella of the Baha'i cycle. And very importantly, as Baha'is, this is progressive revelation. After His Holiness Baha'u'llah, another manifestation of God will have come. So this is where it will be another indefinite number of future revelations. So even though Baha'u'llah has passed in at least 1,000 years, so after at least 1,000 years, another manifestation will appear, and then after that, another one. And because God does not leave His humanity without guidance. So we mentioned these three ages. There was heroic age, formative age, Golden Age. So the heroic age started with the dispensation of the Bab, okay? And the dispensation of the Bab started from May 23rd, 1844, and so it has the full ministry of the Blessed Bab. He was martyred in 1850, July 9th. Then the ministry of Baha'u'llah. He passed away 1892, and then the ministry of Abdul Baha, and he passed away in 1921. So the period of the heroic age is this period right here, covering the central figures of the faith: the Blessed Bab, His Holiness Baha'u'llah, and His Holiness Abdul Baha. This is the heroic age. Then from the period, the beloved Guardian really says it's from the period of the passing of Bahi'i Khanum, the formative age starts. Generally, in other places, also mentions that it's from the passing of Abdul Baha in 1921. The beloved Guardian clarifies it's really from the passing of Bahi'i Khanum. The formative age starts, and we are currently in the formative age. And during the ministry of the formative age is the Blessed Guardian, the beloved Guardian, and he passed away in 1957. Then from 1957 to 1963 was the ministry of the Custodians. These are the hands of the cause of God. At that point in time, there were 27 hands of the cause of God, and they elected members to serve in the capacity to oversee world affairs and having that permanent seat in Haifa. Then prior to the Universal House of Justice, they had an International Baha'i Council. And then that International Baha'i Council formed and then turned, for the first time, they had elections for the Universal House of Justice in 1963. So this will carry on for all the way till we reach all those elements that we talked about in our last session, the requirements to achieve the Baha'i World Commonwealth. And as we achieve one after another, we'll be ever closer to achieving that day of days that has been talked about through all the dispensations prior to be achieving this golden age.
Dear Hassan, can you
Please.
explain the Bahi'i Khanum reference?
I have an extract on it. I will show it to you actually. So it's coming up, dear John.
That's great. Thank you.
Excellent. So the first stage is the heroic age, otherwise referred to by Shoghi Effendi as the primitive age or the apostolic age. So there's these other terms, okay? Heroic age or primitive age or apostolic age. And this stage began with the declaration of the Bab, 23rd May 1844, and it ended with the passing of Abdul Baha, 28th November 1921. Or more particularly, this is, as the beloved Guardian states, of the passing of the greatest holy leaf, the sister of Abdul Baha, July 1932. So that's really the point when the formative age officially starts, because it's the beloved Guardian says more particularly, and I can send that reference actually.
Was it a letter or?
It was a letter.
Okay, so it was a letter. Okay.
Yes. So the beloved Guardian reference said, in reference to, and this was on her passing, greatest holy leaf, it was really the closing of the heroic age. And the beloved Guardian said that more particularly that that chapter, that heroic age is come to a close, and now the formative age is really starting. So the primitive age of the Baha'i era, unapproached in spiritual fecundity by any period associated with the mission of the founder of any previous dispensation, was impregnated from its inception to its termination with the creative energies generated through the advent of two independent manifestations and the establishment of a covenant unique in the spiritual annals of mankind. This is, as they say, a first, unique period of time. Now, look at this, dear friends. Every period prior, okay, one manifestation of God comes. 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 But none of these past manifestations, can you see my mouse moving? Yes, I believe you can. None of these manifestations of God that appeared left a covenant. Namely, they never had a successor after them. They never had an appointed individual after them. Okay? This is the first time in the history of the world that one of these divine lights have left a covenant. Also unique at this point to this dispensation is two of these divine lights appeared at the same time in the world's history. So this is twin manifestations of God appearing. So here the beloved guardian is saying this intensity, this spiritual fecundity hitting the world, impregnated in this inception, was generated through Advent bringing in of two independent manifestations. So each one had their own revelation. So they were independent of each other. And so how important it also is to study the ministry and life of the Blessed Bab, and as well as the ministry and life of His Holiness Baha'u'llah. Two manifestations of God appearing, as well as this covenant unique in the face of mankind. This is an incredible covenant, and we're going to be exploring that in great detail when we study together, dear friends, the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. The beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, has identified these three distinct epochs of 9, of 39, and of 29 years duration. So these are the periods of their ministries. 9 years, 39 years, and of 29 years, which are associated respectively with the dispensation of the Bab, ministries of Baha'u'llah, and of Abdul Baha. Okay? So moving, dear friends, to the formative age. The formative age which we're all living in currently. This is also called the transitional or formative age. It is the period of evolution of the faith towards the unfoldment of its potentials and the emergence of the world order envisaged by Baha'u'llah. The formative age is a period also of suffering, tests, trials, and tribulations. This is another reference. It's not because if you want to change something, mold something, grow something. Now think of it, dear friends, I made this little image on the right. The heroic age is like that caterpillar. It suddenly emerges on the scene. It's suddenly, and the whole world is seeing this heroic age. And that little caterpillar is eating everything and growing, just like how the Baha'is, going from strength to strength to strength. The whole country very quickly embraced the faith of the Bab. But what happened was there was sudden backlash and attacks. But did that stop the faith of His Holiness Baha'u'llah? No, the faith is ever growing. The faith is going from strength to strength. So now it's going through after the passing of mentioned Baha'i Khanum, and now we're into the ministry of the beloved guardian. Now we're into the period of the Universal House of Justice. And this is the formative age. So this is, as in my little graphic, the cocoon stage. The cocoon stage in this graphic is a period where that little caterpillar is transforming, changing, working on itself, working on its character, working on its communities, working on its clusters, working on its inner life and private conditions. And we're going to be exploring that in great detail in Advent of Divine Justice, that as the individual needs to transform itself. If I showed this little thing, this caterpillar, to a small child and said, is this little caterpillar the same as this beautiful butterfly? The kid would say, no. I showed that to my 2-year-old, and say, is this caterpillar the same as this? The kid would say, no, it's not the same, because it has to go through this period, which is so uncomfortable for this, caterpillar, which is the formative age. It is uncomfortable. It has to sit in this little stage and go through suffering, per se. And that suffering is transformational change. Now, if you, for some reason, feel bad, you're like, I feel bad for this poor caterpillar. I really liked it. It was so beautiful before. And you try to open it up and try to help it out. What happens? It dies. It doesn't live very much longer, because this stage is a natural evolution for this organism. It has to go through this stage. And so this is, just as when we get to part 16, we're going to be exploring tests, trials, and tribulations, because the beloved guardian mentions it coming up. And this is in reference to the community's growth. And this was in reference to the double crusade, that the community will undergo great tests, trials, and tribulations. So this is where we are, dear friends. We are going to go through, as the beloved guardian earlier we mentioned in Citadel of Faith, going through repeated tests, trials, tribulations, and the guardian mentions reverses. So at times we think, are we going forward? No, we actually might be going backwards at times. You see that? But all of it is this long, thorny, and the word the guardian mentions in Citadel of Faith, tortuous road. So this is where we are. But all of that, dear friends, is going to give us wings. All of that is going to give us strength. And all of that is going to make us eventually come together. So that really is a very important point, where we are as in this period, the formative age. So in the Baha'i writings, there is no indication of the duration of this period that we are in, the formative age. However, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi indicates that the formative age consists of a number of epochs that will gradually emerge over time. And we just entered a new epoch with the coming of this Resvan. So this was, formative age of the Baha'i era. And here you see my graphic, under construction, because we're right now, the formative age is really an under construction phase. We're growing this Baha'i community. So what is in Citadel? These are all extracts, and they're in list form. I put it in list form, but it's all coming from Citadel of Faith, page 6. So let me have a reader. Alice, if you could be so kind, read these extracts for us. Thank you so much. Unmute yourself, dear Alice, and then you could go ahead. Thank you.
What were you saying?
Dear Alice, if you could kindly read this extract for us.
It's too small for me, please.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, bless your heart, dear Alice. Thank you so much. Miss Sandra, could you read it for us?
In one of his letters, Shoghi Effendi describes the major events to occur during the formative age. He foresees that during the succeeding epochs, the last and crowning stage in the erection of the framework of the administrative order of the faith of Baha'u'llah, the election of the Universal House of Justice, will have been completed. The Extols, the mother book of his revelation, will have been codified and its laws promulgated. The lesser peace will have been established. The unity of mankind will have been achieved and its maturity attained. The plan conceived by Abdu'l-Baha will have been executed. The emancipation of the faith from the fetters of religious orthodoxy will have been effected, and its independent religious status will have been universally recognized.
Beautifully read, dear Sandra. Thank you so much. So out of these A through G, okay, the first one was achieved. The last and crowning stage in the erection of the framework of the administrative order of the faith of Baha'u'llah, namely the election of the Universal House of Justice, will have been completed. So this happened, Rizwan 1963. So that was the first election of the supreme body, the Universal House of Justice. So this one, A, as they say, check mark, okay? B, the Kitab Ahdas, the mother book of his holy revelation, will have been codified and its laws promulgated. This also was achieved. So this, we're going to come to that. This was also achieved, check mark. Now C, the lesser peace will have been established. And we also talked about this in our last session. This is when the leaders, the political leaders, whether even if they have not accepted the faith, will come together and work to establish peace together as countries. And so this has not been established yet. The first glimmerings of it, and we talked about it and addressed it, was the League of Nations. And later on, it became, evolved into the United Nations. So the formalization and the establishment of the lesser peace, the Universal House of Justice, this has not been established yet. So we're up to B so far. So the road to achieving these is still long in that sense, to work towards. So thus far, the Baha'i faith has passed through the following epochs of the formative age. The first epoch began with the ministry of Shoghi Effendi as the guardian of the Baha'i faith in 1921 and ended in 1944 to 46. So the reason why this was in a letter and it made this period, I don't know why this was like 1944 to 46, the closing of the first century after the Declaration of the Bab. So Declaration of the Bab, 1844 to 1944, first century, but I don't know why, at least to my intellectual knowledge, why it was referenced as 1944 to 46. But this was the period of the first epoch of the formative age. And so the second epoch began in 1946, okay? 1946, and it ended in 1963. So 1946 to 63. And it ended with the election of the Universal House of Justice. And this epoch, the second epoch, extended the developments of the first epoch by calling for the consummation of a laboriously constructed administrative order, and was to witness the formulation of a succession of teaching plans designed to facilitate the development of the faith beyond the confines of the Western Hemisphere and the continent of Europe. This second epoch thus clearly demonstrated the further maturation of the institutions of the administrative order. So the faith was emerging, growing gradually, And so these epochs were stages of its growth and development. Okay, and this third epoch started with the emergence of now the election of the supreme body in 1963. So here is the actual letter, and I will read this for you, dear friends. And this is the cable that was sent April 22nd, 1963, and it says signed hands faith. So this is the cable announcing the first historic House of Justice is elected. It says, on the occasion of worldwide celebrations of the most great Jubilee commemorating the centenary of the ascension of Baha'u'llah to the throne of his sovereignty, with hearts overflowing with gratitude for his unfailing protection and overflowing bounties, we joyfully announce to the friends of the East and West the election of the supreme legislative body ordained by him in his most holy book and promised by him to receive his infallible guidance. Members of the first historic House of Justice, duly elected by delegates comprising members of 56 national assemblies. And here are the members: Charles Wolcott, Ali Nakhjavani, H. Bora Kavalin, Ian Semple, Lutfullah Hakim, David Hoffman, Hugh Chance, Amos Gibson, and Hushmand Fatah Azam. To the jubilation of the entire Baha'i world for the victorious completion of the beloved Guardian's unique crusade is now added the humble gratitude and profound thanksgiving of the followers of Baha'u'llah for the erection of the Universal House of Justice, that august body to whom all believers must turn, whose destiny is to guide the unfoldment of his embryonic world order through the administrative institutions prescribed by Baha'u'llah, elaborated by Abdul Baha, and laboriously erected by Shoghi Effendi, and to ensure the early dawn of the golden age of the faith, when the word of the Lord will cover the earth as the waters covered the sea. This was Haifa, Israel, April 22nd, 1963, and this was cabled by the hands of the cause, hands faith. This is from the Ministry of the Custodians. So announcing the handoff that now the Universal House of Justice has been elected. And here they are, dear friends. So this was the first body here. These are the members of the Universal House of Justice in the Shrine Gardens on Mount Carmel. And you can see the members: Charles Wolcott, Amos Gibson, Bushman Fatah Assam, Hugh Chance, H. Barakavalin, and Ian Semple, Lutfullah Hakim, David Hoffman, and Ali Nakhjavani. So they're the members, dear friends. So this third epoch began in 1963 and ended 1986. The period of the third epoch encompassed 3 world plans involving all national spiritual assemblies under the direction of the Universal House of Justice, namely the 9-year plan, 1964 to 73. There was a 5-year plan, the 1974 to 79, and there was a 7-year plan, 79 to 86. And this third epoch witnessed the emergence of the faith from obscurity and the initiation of activities designed to foster the social and economic development of communities. And this came from messages from the Universal House of Justice. So this was, what did this period entail, this third epoch? So now the faith is emerging from obscurity. It's now really going from strength to strength. Then, from 1986 on, we were in the 4th epoch, not the next stage of the in this formative age. So this 4th epoch began in 1986. The Universal House of Justice announced the inception of this new epoch of the formative age in a letter dated January 2nd, 1986, to the Baha'is of the world. The Fourth Epoch highlighted the significant developments that had occurred in the organic growth of the cause of God during the Third Epoch. And in the previous epochs, the national plans were largely derived from the Baha'i World Center. And in the epoch, the specific goals for each national community were formulated within the framework of the overall objectives of the plan through consultation between national spiritual assemblies and the Continental Board of Counselors. So this was an organic, evolutionary, progressive learning. And so now we're into the Fourth Epoch. And in prior epochs, namely the Third Epoch, the guidance was coming from the Supreme Body, Universal House of Justice. Not that the Universal House of Justice does not send guidance, but these new plans, the plans, were now coming from the national was issuing plans, and in consultation with the Continental Board of Counselors during the Fourth Epoch. So this was a new development that emerged during this period in the Fourth Epoch. There were now national plans in consultation with the Continental Board of Counselors. Then the Fifth Epoch started in 2001. The Universal House of Justice announced the inception of this epoch of the Formative Age in a letter dated 16th January 2001 to the Baha'is of the world. As the construction projects on Mount Carmel approached their completion, and as the internal processes of institutional consolidation and the external processes toward the world unity became more fully synchronized, the extraordinary dynamics at work throughout the conference crystallized these indications into a recognizable reality. And I actually was on visiting my brother in the World Center. He was serving there in the Secretariat. And I was visiting my brother for 2 weeks. And it just happened to be during that conference time. So I had a rare privilege, and I was serving. They asked me if I would like to serve during my 2 weeks there, and I said, sure, I'd love to serve in the World Center. And so I served in the office of the printing press, which is in the parking garage of the seat of the Universal House of Justice, and that is where they actually make the inks for the official letters that the Universal House of Justice issues, or the International Teaching Center issues. And so when I was there, this incredible document that the Universal House of Justice issued to the Baha'is of the world, and also that incredible document that was from the International Teaching Center in January of 2001. That letter, we were working on the colored ink for that specific document, because that was a very important document, the issuing coming from the International Teaching Center. So yeah, I have memories of the days of when we entered into this epoch and the Fifth Epoch. Then we just entered into a new epoch in this Resvan. So I didn't have managed to put it into this presentation, but I have this slide. It says, additional epochs can be anticipated in the Formative Age. And we just entered into the Sixth Epoch, which is in now 2021. So we just entered into, if you read the Resvan message, you'll see that we just entered into the latest epoch. So in this slide, it says additional epochs can be anticipated in the Formative Age, as the tasks to be completed in this age are many and they will be challenging. And we have talked about the challenges that the beloved guardian is saying are inevitable. And this will be really for the spiritual maturation and growth of the community. And in the Will and Testament of Abdu'l-Baha, he provides the link between the heroic age and the formative age. So lastly, dear friends, we're going to address the golden age of the Baha'i era. And I believe actually, dear John, this is my last slide. So I mentioned that this will be a shorter session than our typical and normal sessions, but this is to wrap up these paragraphs 12 through 15. So the golden age is the stage of perfection. It is the stage in the completion of all those elements that we talked about in the unfoldment of this Baha'i world commonwealth. Also, I believe the golden age will have stages within itself, but we're not even remotely close to that. So that is something also that we'll find out later. Maybe not in this physical plane, but when we're in the Abha kingdom, we will see it coming to be. The golden age is the stage of perfection and this realization of the goals of the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. The initial stages of the golden age will be synchronized with the emergence of a world community. This is from the beloved guardian, World Order of Baha'u'llah. And this is coming from Unfoldment of World Civilization. It's the last letter. This is called the world letters that the beloved guardian wrote. So the emergence of a world community, the consciousness of world citizenship, and the founding of a world civilization and culture. Shoghi Effendi regards such developments as the furthermost limits in the organization of human society, though man as an individual must indeed, as a result of such a consummation, continue indefinitely to progress and develop. These barriers that mankind has made, namely country barriers, walls, even all of these have been heightened to be prejudices and reasons for division, disunity, fighting and warfare have all been created. And all of these are man-made. The beloved guardian here says the highest stage of this maturation is when we recognize that we are world citizens, members of this one planet together, that we should work towards achieving these goals, working towards achieving the goals of being members of one family, working towards the goals of bringing about an ever-advancing civilization, the elimination of hunger, the eradication of disease, bringing about universal healthcare in the sense that everyone has access to clean water, access to food, access, and then the organization and systematization of the resources of this planet so that no individual will amass inordinate amounts of money and wealth while others are starving and hungry. So this will be the maturation of humanity, spiritual maturation of humanity. This will come about. And the first stages will be the coming of the nations together to bring about this lesser peace. And this is where the consciousness of humanity is raised, that there, and when that comes about, it will create, per se, spiritual ripple effects. And those effects will have ramifications and changing and transformation of the greater spiritual consciousness of humanity itself. So these, the beloved guardian has talked about in much greater detail in Unfoldment of World Civilization. So I think, yeah, we have just a few more slides. Excellent. And this is from Promised Day Is Come. This is a letter that the beloved guardian wrote about 1946, I believe. God's purpose is none other than to usher in ways he alone can bring about, and the full significance of which he alone can fathom, the great, the golden age of a long divided, a long afflicted humanity. Its present state, indeed, even its immediate future, is dark, distressingly dark. Its distant future, however, is radiant, gloriously radiant, so radiant that no eye can visualize it. I love it. Now think about it. Now think about where we are currently. We're in this dark, miserable shell, that cocoon. Think about it. It's all cramped up in there. There's problems. You were such a happy-go-lucky caterpillar before, you know, in the warmth and embrace of the twin manifestations, and it was awesome. Now we're in a period called the formative age. This is the maturation of not only the institutions, the community, and the individual. So this is the three protagonists. They have to go through this maturation, and it requires really suffering. For suffering, it needs that through suffering, growth occurs. And that growth is required for us to eventually enter into this age, which the beloved guardian is entitling the golden age. So here the beloved guardian is saying, our immediate state is dark, distressingly dark, but our future is radiant. And when I think of that, I think, oh, the cocoon is emerging. And now this beautiful, beautiful butterfly is emerging. And look at that radiant future, gloriously radiant. And that is what we have to work towards. Every time that a community, an individual is working towards the eradication of racial prejudices in their communities, every time a community is working on these type of activities, working to and creating spaces of love and fellowship, and working and having serious and deep and mature conversations. And sometimes these conversations are difficult, you know, and this is sometimes they get into the nitty gritty. That's why it's called long and thorny road. And every time that communities do this work, what happens, it creates growth, inner growth and growth of the community at large. So this is where, as we mentioned in Citadel of Faith, long, thorny, and tortuous, because sometimes these conversations are difficult and hard to undertake, but we got to go down that road. Now, I believe this is technically my last slide on part 5B, covering paragraphs 12 through 15. And before I finish this slide, I want you to, next week, we're going to be studying paragraph 16. So that's going to be your homework, dear friends. So paragraph 16 is one paragraph. And in that one paragraph, the beloved guardian is outlining the early history of the American Baha'i community. So that's going to be your homework, paragraph 16 for next week, okay? And that will be our part 6 we'll be covering. So this is my last extract I have here, dear friends, on the golden age, which every Baha'i in the entire world is ultimately working towards to bring about. In the course of the golden age, humanity will witness that the banner of the most great peace promised by its author will have been unfurled. The world Baha'i Commonwealth will have emerged in the plenitude of its power and splendor, and the birth and efflorescence of a world civilization, that child of that peace, will have conferred its inestimable blessings upon all mankind. Such outcomes will be unfolded through successive epochs of the Golden Age. So here, this is extracted from Universal House of Justice in the wider horizon. So the Golden Age will have successive epochs within itself also. So it's not just going to be like, you know, we did a really, you know, great job during the Formative Age, and now, boom, we're in the Golden Age, you know, hunky-dory. But in the Golden Age, there will also be successive epochs within it also. Okay? And there we are, dear friends. So that was a shortened, abridged ending point part, as they say, part 5b, covering the end parts of paragraphs 12 through 15. And as mentioned, next week, we'll be getting into paragraph 16. And in paragraph 16 of Advent and Divine Justice, this is where we're going to be exploring the early American Baha'i community. And also, dear friends, I encourage you to read the letter America and the Most Great Peace by the Beloved Guardian. America and the Most Great Peace. In that letter, this was written, this is one of his other world order letters. So he wrote a series of world order letters, and America and the Most Great Peace covers the history of the early American Baha'i community. And in paragraph 16, he abridges that whole letter, America and the Most Great Peace, into one paragraph. Only the Beloved Guardian could do something so masterful as this. And so an incredible letter, America and the Most Great Peace, he summarizes it into this one paragraph in part 16. So what I did in part 16, I blew it up. You know, I took, you know, every sentence and I expanded it, and all the major players, I brought out his early American Baha'i history in that one. So that will be for next time. Let us close, dear friends. Do you have any questions at this point, at this time? Let me hand it over to dear John. And thank you so much as always. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I'm going to be pulling up the prayer for closing. In the process of pulling it up as we speak.
But one last thing, dear John, before you pull up the prayer. I know in several sections that, you know, we'll be covering history, we'll be covering world issues, world governments, we'll be covering, and these are all a myriad of different topics. The Beloved Guardian, he's covering, remember, he's an incredible sociologist. He's surveying the whole events during that period of time, 1938, when it was written. But the real crux of it, the real essence of what the Beloved Guardian is getting at in Advent of Divine Justice is the change within, so that you change to become that new race of man. That you care more about your brother, your sister, your loved ones. When I say your brother or sister, I'm not talking even biologically, that your fellow man, whether black, white, red, tan, doesn't matter. It's that you care, you love, your heart burns, you walk the talk. That's the reality. And this is why Advent of Divine Justice was written, so that you become that new race of man. And so that all these qualities and attributes that we're going to be getting into become internalized. And what is all of this for? It was so that it will have success in all the teaching plans. So this is written for the success of the first 7-year plan that was issued in 1937. So Advent of Divine Justice, the Guardian is saying, hey, now this first 7-year plan was issued in 1937. Let's get this off without a hitch, as they say. You know, and so what is the success of all teaching plans? It is namely, you got to have a rectitude of conduct, you got to have a chaste and holy life, and you got to have a freedom from all racial prejudices. So that's the building block. You first got to start with that. And then once you got that in your camp, as they say, you're working on those. You're working hard every day on those. Then you got to work on your mouth and your brain. So the brain in the sense of you got to study first and foremost. You have to teach yourself. First and foremost, you have to teach yourself. Then you have to refine your tongue by practicing teaching. You have to open your mouth and practice in teaching. And this is also something, dear John, before I wanted to bring out very importantly. Often, dear friends, the friends, pray quietly to themselves. They may close their eyes, and in their privacy of their chamber, they may say their prayers. But if we look to how what it says and how we should pray and read the writings, it says recite the verses every morning and eve. This is injunction, Kitab al-Ahdas, most holy book. Recite the verses every morning and eve. Now, we don't often look up definitions of words, but the word recite is actually say it out loud. Say it out loud. And that's very important. Recite the verses every morning and eve. So why should we say the words every morning and eve? And even our prayers, intone, O my servants. Intone means opening your mouth. First is an opening extract in the prayer book. Intone the verses. So we should recite and say the prayers and writings out loud. Why do I say this? And why am I bringing this up? Because this is a form of practice. So we not only our mouths are doing it, it becomes internalized. We hear it and it becomes part of our per se repertoire of who we are, a character, and so that our tongue starts hearing the sounds and movement of the prayers and writings and words of God. But apart from that, dear friends, it's the more that we actually hear the word of God, it will affect our hearts. It will chip away. It will chip away.
Candle.
Yeah, it will chip away all of these, per se, the dirt and accumulation and dross that the world has thrown on our heart and we've brought upon ourselves. So that's why saying, and this is the tradition, a beautiful tradition of African Americans have, is the vocalization of the word of God. And this is something that Baha'u'llah intone, recite, and this is straight up the same. And we have to have this practice of not, and it says in the privacy of your chamber, if you're scared even to, because we're also injuncted not to go around into the streets and, go and say prayers but we're said in the privacy of our chamber, recite the verse. That's all I have to say on that. But I wanted it to hit that point home that we need to practice our tongue, our voice, reciting these words. Excellent. Very good, my dear friend.
Can I recommend a book?
Please,
dear ones. It's called 30 Days to Taming Your Tongue. What you say and don't say will improve your relationship. And it's by Deborah Smith Pegu.
Okay.
It's an excellent book because I know most of us don't know about all of these tongues that we have. And I got into it because of my feeling being hurt a lot when we talk to each other. So it's 30 days and it's all kinds of tongues, the flattering tongue, the lying tongue, the manipulating tongue, the hastening tongue, the division tongue, the argumentary tongue, the bossy tongue, the self-deprecating tongue, and slandering tongue, gossiping tongue, meddling tongue, betrayed tongue, belittle tongue, and it goes on and on. So I think as Baha'is, we need to pick that book up, because a lot of times we in discussion, we are offending one another. And a lot of people, special African American, are walking away from the faith, whether you know it or not, because white people has been trained to talk to black people a certain way. They have books written that was actually taught to them how to overlook us, how not to pay us any attention. Anything we say is not correct. There are many I can go down the road and say to you, but racism has a lot to be done with this tongue. And in the Bible, it tells you the only thing can bridle your tongue is the Holy Spirit. And to bridle your tongue, I pray for that a lot. To ask the Holy Spirit to bridle my tongue and shut my mouth, because I got a fast tongue too. So we think we don't as one have one, but that's why we have arguments and fights and wars because of the tongue. So I just want to lift that up to you. It's a very great book to have to study about your tongue, and you're going to learn something about yourself that you did not know. So
thank you, dear Alice. Thank you. No, and apart from the tongue, which is His Holiness Baha'u'llah says a kindly tongue. So that's another type of tongue, right? A kindly tongue is the lodestone of the hearts of men. So that's the kind of tongue that we should have, a kindly tongue. And all those other tongues that you said made me cringe, you know, because those, they're like.
But you got to recognize what kind of tongue you are talking to people with.
Right.
And that's one thing I learned since 2014. I listen to people's tongue. What you saying to me, you may think you being polite and nice, but you are being nice, nasty. So I've kind of studied this. I hear people, and especially when we dialoguing between white and black, it's an ugly thing. If you don't recognize it, you think it's okay. But I recognize it, and it's not okay. And we need a lot of love, lots of love.
You know, you're absolutely right, dear Alice. We have the greatest gift in this day and age, because we are aware of this manifestation of God, Baha'u'llah. We have this great gift, and that gift, when we say Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah, we're using our tongue. It is the greatest thing that our tongue can do, is to utter his name, the most great name. It is literally like you're giving the ultimate purpose to your tongue, to utter his name. And when you teach the cause, it's you giving it the ultimate gift. But when you, as you said, dear Alice, use your tongue for anything other than its purpose, in the sense of slander, belittling, denigrating, all of those other things, lying and cheating and all of those other things, you are, and with that same tongue, and you use that to say Baha'u'llah, or then you use the same tongue to do something else, you are abusing what God has given you. You're abusing it. And how can you use the same organ to utter the name Baha'u'llah and then use it to do something vile? You see, we have to understand what God's creation is. Another organ that we have to be very aware of is our ears. Our ears are meant to hear seemly things, beautiful things. And also, very importantly, I close with this, dear John, is our ears, we have two of them and one mouth. So we should really try to listen more than we talk. And so in situations, in conversations, our exemplar, Abdul Baha, he listened to the heart. He truly listened before he even opened his mouth. The person would respond and say, you already know and feel everything in my heart. The answer is already there. And so Abdul Baha listened till they poured their heart out. And that is a kind of listening that is filled with love. This is our exemplar, and we have to truly listen to each other. That is all I can say on that, dear friends. We're going to get much more into these type of conversations coming up, especially as we approach part 15, which is covering paragraphs around 53. And that is when we start approaching the Baha'i solution to racism, and that is in Advent of Divine Justice. So, dear friends, I truly appreciated our session today. Next week, we'll be studying paragraph 16. So, dear friends, that's your homework, paragraph 16, and wishing you all a wonderful week, and we'll have our closing prayer. Thank you so much.
Dear Ehsan, could you say the prayer today?
Absolutely, thank you. And as mentioned, dear friends, my heart goes out to the friends in Haiti, and especially the friends in Afghanistan who are going through an incredible ordeal right now. Oh my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest. Abdul Baha.
Allah Pa, love you, love you, love you.
Likewise, dear Alice, look forward to seeing you tomorrow next week. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Thank you.